never planned to be a mother at 70. He was left on my porch, wrapped in an old jacket, silent as snow. Everyone said he wouldn't survive the night, but I saw something in his eyes. The wind that night howled like a creature lost between worlds. Snow fell heavy, muting the sound of the village below. Inside a small wooden house on the hill, Margaret Lane sat by the crackling fire, her old hands trembling slightly as she stitched a tear in her shawl. The world had grown quiet around her years ago, since her husband's passing. Since her only son had been taken by war. It was supposed to be another lonely evening, filled with the ticking of the clock and the echo of things she'd never said. Then, a knock, soft, hesitant, almost too faint to hear beneath the storm. At first, she thought it was the wind knocking a loose shutter. But then came another, louder this time, 3 deliberate taps. She rose slowly, bones protesting, and opened the door, and there he was. A small bundle on her porch. No movement. No sound. Just the faintest rise and fall of breath. She knelt, the cold biting through her knees, and unwrapped the layers. Inside was a baby, pale, still, with lips the color of frost. He couldn't have been more than a few months old. Her heart stopped when she saw the tiny bracelet on his wrist, a broken silver band with only half a letter carved into it, E. No note. No explanation. No sign of who had left him. Only that half letter, gleaming faintly in the snow. She carried him inside, her old arms shaking under the fragile weight. By the firelight, she examined him, so cold, his skin almost translucent. She pressed her ear to his chest. A heartbeat, faint, fragile, but still there. Margaret acted without thinking. Years of loneliness fell away as instinct returned, the kind that had once driven her to rock her own child through fevered nights long ago. She lit more wood, boiled water, and wrapped the boy in wool. Then she held him against her chest, whispering the same lullaby she hadn't sung in decades. Her voice cracked, but it didn't matter. Come back to me, little one, she whispered. You're not leaving me too. The next morning, the neighbors came, drawn by the rumors that flew faster than the wind. They gathered outside her door, whispering among themselves, Margaret found a baby. At her age? Impossible. Probably one of those orphans from the train. Poor thing. She shouldn't keep it. She's too old. When the village doctor arrived, he took one look at the baby and shook his head. He's malnourished, weak. I don't know how long he'll last. Best take him to the orphanage in the city. But Margaret tightened her grip. Her eyes, faded blue but steady, met his. No, she said quietly. He's staying here. That winter became her battle. Nights were endless. The child would cry until dawn, his body racked with fever. Margaret slept in a chair beside him, warming milk on the stove, humming when her voice barely held together. The fire burned through her savings. She spent every last coin on wood, blankets, medicine, but slowly, miraculously, he began to live. The first time he opened his eyes, she froze. They were not the dull gray she expected, but the same blue as a summer sky, the same color her son once had. That was the moment she named him Eli. Spring arrived with birdsong and thawed rivers. Margaret's house, once quiet as a grave, filled with laughter. Eli learned to crawl, then to walk, following her everywhere, tiny hands gripping her skirts. The villagers, who had once pitied her, began to smile as she passed by. They'd see the boy helping her carry bread, feeding the hens, trying to whistle and failing adorably. The years passed in gentle rhythm, morning chores, evening stories, laughter beside the fire. Eli's first word wasn't mama, but stay. He said it one night when she tucked him into bed, his small fingers clutching her sleeve. Stay, he murmured. Don't go away. Margaret's throat tightened. She smoothed his hair, smiled through tears. I'm not going anywhere, my darling. But deep down, she knew time was already slipping through her fingers. As Eli grew older, 10, strong, and endlessly curious, Margaret aged faster. Her joints stiffened. Her breath shortened. Yet she never let him see her weakness. Every morning, she greeted him with the same smile. The same promise of safety. One afternoon, as they sat by the porch watching the sunset stain the sky gold, Margaret placed her wrinkled hand over his. Eli, she said softly. One day, when I'm gone, promise me something. He looked up at her, puzzled. Gone? Where? Just, when that day comes, she continued, voice trembling, promise me you'll never let the world harden your heart. No matter what it takes. You hear me? He frowned, then nodded solemnly. I promise. She smiled faintly, eyes distant. Good boy. Cliffhanger ending. The next morning was bright, the kind that made the whole village smell of fresh hay and sunshine. Margaret was hanging laundry in the yard, humming softly, white sheets billowing in the wind. Eli was chasing butterflies nearby, his laughter echoing through the field. Then suddenly, the sound of something falling. He turned, the sheet she'd been holding slipped from her hands as she crumpled to the ground. Her body still, her face turned toward the sky. Grandma. Eli screamed, running to her side, shaking her fragile shoulders. Her eyes fluttered open once, barely. She smiled weakly, reaching to touch his face. Remember? She whispered. Never harden your heart. Then the wind carried the words away, the camera pulls back, the boy kneeling in the yard. White sheets fluttering like ghost wings around him, his cries echoing into the endless sky. Time moved quietly in the little town, the way winter melts into spring, unnoticed until the flowers are gone. Eli was no longer the boy on the porch. He had grown tall, his shoulders broad, his voice deeper. But though his body changed, his eyes still held that same unspoken ache, a question of where he came from, and why. Margaret recovered from the collapse that nearly took her, but she was never quite the same. Her steps were slower, her breath shallower. Each morning she'd wake with gratitude, whispering, just one more day to see him grow. Eli began attending the local school, a new world filled with laughter, cruelty, and whispers. The other children didn't forget what the adults said behind closed doors. That's the boy the old widow found. No real parents. They say his mother didn't want him. He tried to ignore them. But words have a way of sinking into places no one can reach. At lunchtime, he'd sit alone beneath the oak tree while the others played. Sometimes Margaret would pass by the fence, pretending she'd just been walking by, slipping him a small paper-wrapped sandwich. He'd smile, at first. But over time, embarrassment crept in. "Gran, you don't have to come," he'd mutter, glancing toward his classmates. Her smile never wavered. "I know, love. I just wanted to see if my favorite boy's eating." But when she left, he'd lower his head, pretending not to care as laughter echoed behind him. By the time he turned 16, Eli had grown restless. The town was small, its people smaller. The same fields, same faces, same expectations. He wanted more, to be more. He started taking odd jobs at the mechanic's shop, cleaning windows, carrying sacks for farmers. When Margaret would ask where he'd been, he'd shrug. "Working. I'm not gonna live in this old house forever." Her heart ached, but she didn't stop him. She saw the fire in him, the same hunger that had once driven her late husband. One night, as he sat by the fire counting the coins he'd earned, she quietly placed a folded note beside him. He didn't open it right away. But later, alone in his room, curiosity won. Her handwriting trembled across the paper. "The world will try to make you forget where love began. Don't let it. Money can build a house, Eli, but only love can make it home." He read it twice, then tucked it away, between the pages of his schoolbook, and told himself he'd remember. But time is a thief that steals gently. When Eli turned 18, opportunity came in the form of a scholarship letter. College, miles away. He was ecstatic. Margaret tried to smile, but her hands shook as she folded his clothes into a small suitcase. "I'll visit every year," he promised. "You'll see. I'll send letters every week." She nodded. "Just don't forget to write, love. The house will miss your noise." The morning he left, she stood on the porch in her old shawl, waving as the bus disappeared down the hill. The road curved, swallowed the bus, and then, silence. The days turned into weeks. Weeks into months. At first, the letters came often, pages filled with his excitement, his new life, his friends, his dreams. She'd read them over and over, her heart swelling with pride. Then they came less. A few lines. A few words. Then, nothing. Every evening, she'd still set 2 plates for dinner. One for herself, one for him. Neighbors would stop by sometimes, bringing soup, conversation, pity. "He's probably busy, Margaret. You know how young men are." She'd smile softly. "I know. Still, he'll come when he can." But the chair across from her stayed empty. Birthdays came and went. Christmas lights glowed in windows across the village, but her home remained quiet. The only sound, the ticking clock above the fireplace. The photo of Eli, taken when he was 10, all messy hair and bright eyes, stayed framed beside her bed. Every night she'd touch the glass. "I'm proud of you, my boy," she'd whisper. "Always." The house had aged with her, paint peeling, floorboards sighing under the weight of memory. 1895, Margaret was thinner, her hair silver white. Her hands shook as she poured tea, her eyesight blurred around the edges of the world. Yet her mind, and her love, remained sharp. When a letter arrived from the town council, she thought it might be from him. Her heart leapt before her eyes betrayed her. It was an invitation to honor Margaret Lane for her service and kindness as the woman who raised a generation. She chuckled softly. "A generation, perhaps. But only one boy ever raised me." The ceremony was held in the town square. Music, speeches, flowers. Children she once helped now had children of their own. They clapped, smiled, called her a saint. Cameras flashed. But Margaret's gaze kept drifting toward the crowd, searching every face, every shadow. The mayor stepped forward, reading names of people who had been inspired by her life. And one of them, though he could not be here today, sends his love from across the ocean, Dr. Eli Lane. The crowd applauded. Margaret smiled weakly. But her hands trembled around the cane. He didn't come, not this year. Not in a year, and though she clapped along, something inside her folded quietly, like a page closing at the end of a story she still wasn't ready to finish. 4 years later, Margaret's 99th birthday. The world outside is bathed in late afternoon light, golden but fading. Inside the small countryside care home, the walls are quiet except for the hum of a ceiling fan and the distant sound of laughter from the nurse's station. A nameplate on the door reads simply, Margaret Lane, room 12. Inside, she sits by the window in a wheelchair, wrapped in a knitted shawl that someone's granddaughter made years ago. Her hands, thin, translucent, rest folded in her lap. Her eyes drift beyond the glass where birds perch on a leafless tree. The days are long here. People come and go, faces change, and the world beyond the window feels more like a memory than a place. But one thing never changes. Every morning, she looks toward the horizon, as if waiting for someone to appear on that winding road again. The nurses call her Mama M. To them, she's a gentle old woman with stories they only half believe, about a boy left on her porch, a promise whispered in the wind, and a love that refused to die. Scene progression. That morning, the staff gathered quietly outside her door, a small cluster of hearts trying to make the day special. They carried a single cake, hand-frosted, lopsided, with 9 candles shaped like the number 99. The youngest nurse, Emily, who had grown closest to her, whispered, "All right, everyone, she's awake. Let's make this count." The door opened, and a wave of gentle singing filled the room. "Happy birthday to you." Margaret blinked in surprise, then laughed softly, her voice thin but warm. "Oh, heavens. Is that for me?" They placed the cake in front of her. The single candle flickered, its flame trembling like her breath. Emily leaned down, smiling. "Make a wish, Mama M." Margaret gazed at the tiny flame, and for a moment, everything else faded, the room, the staff, even time itself. Her lips moved quietly. "Just to see him again," she whispered. "Even if it's the last thing I do." Then she blew out the candle. The flame vanished, and so did her smile, replaced by that same wistful calm she carried every night before sleep. The nurses cheered softly, clapped, cut the cake. They stayed a while, telling her stories, promising to bring flowers tomorrow. But soon, the room was quiet again, only the ticking of the clock remained. Nightfall, rain began to fall, soft at first, then steady. The care home dimmed its lights. The staff moved through the halls, closing curtains, checking rooms. Margaret dozed in her chair by the window, the half-eaten cake still on her table, her head tilted to the side, and she began to dream of the old porch, the smell of wood smoke, and a small boy's laughter echoing through the fields. Then, somewhere in the distance, the low hum of a car engine. At first, no one noticed. But headlights cut through the rain, sweeping across the empty parking lot. Tires crunched against gravel. A figure stepped out, tall, coat soaked, hair streaked with gray. He carried a small, weathered violin case. Inside, Emily glanced at the clock, almost midnight. She frowned, moving toward the lobby. Who could that be at this hour? When she opened the door, the man looked up. His face was tired, not from the road, but from years. The kind of tiredness that comes from carrying silence too long. "Can I help you, sir?" He hesitated, his voice breaking. "I'm looking for Margaret Lane. I think she's here." Emily's eyes widened. "Mama M?" He nodded slowly. "I'm her son." Flashback montage, soft instrumental underscore. The scene blurs, a montage of years and distance. Eli at 25, working in a hospital overseas, sleepless and proud. Eli at 30, letters in his hand, stamped but never mailed. Eli at 40, watching snow fall outside his apartment, wondering if she's still alive. Then, a flash on a computer screen. An online article, local woman honored as mother of a generation. A photo beneath the headline, Margaret, smiling faintly, holding her cane. He clicks it open, heart racing. She's alive. Still waiting. The next images come faster, a packed suitcase, a flight home, airport lights. A violin case clutched like a lifeline. Then the present, his car pulling into the rain, the reunion. Emily leads him down the corridor. The air smells faintly of lavender and disinfectant. Each step echoes louder than the last. When they reach room 12, she turns the handle slowly. "She's asleep," Emily whispers. "But you can go in." He nods. The door opens. Margaret lies in her bed, frail, her face soft with the peace of deep sleep. Her gray hair spills across the pillow like moonlight. A single lamp glows beside her, illuminating the photograph of a boy on the nightstand, 10 years old, eyes bright, frozen in time. Eli sets down the violin case. His hands tremble as he kneels beside her bed. "Mama," he whispers, voice cracking. "I'm home." For a heartbeat, there is silence. Then, slowly, as though time itself stirred, her eyelids flutter open, her cloudy eyes focus, uncertain. Then recognition spreads across her face like dawn breaking after a long night. Took you long enough, she murmurs, a weak laugh escaping her. Eli bows his head against her hand, tears falling freely. I'm sorry. For everything. I should have come sooner. She smiles faintly, thumb brushing his cheek. You came when it mattered. The night had given way to a pale, golden morning. Soft light spilled through the thin curtains, brushing over Margaret's face, serene, peaceful, almost glowing. The violin rested against the edge of her bed, its strings still trembling faintly from the last note Eli played hours ago. He sat beside her, slumped slightly in the chair, her hand still in his. His eyes were red from crying, exhaustion etched into every line of his face. But there was something else there now, a quiet peace that comes only when you finally stop running. The air smelled faintly of rain and lavender. Somewhere down the hall, a nurse hummed softly to herself, unaware that the entire world seemed to have stopped inside room 12. Margaret stirred. Her eyes fluttered open, and for a brief moment, she looked disoriented. Then she saw him, still holding her hand. She smiled. You stayed. He squeezed her fingers gently. I wasn't going anywhere. Scene progression. They sat in silence for a while, the kind that speaks louder than words. Eli traced the lines of her palm with his thumb, the same hands that once held him when no one else would. Finally, she whispered, her voice thin but steady. You kept your promise. He looked down, tears glistening in his eyes. I broke it 100 times, Mama. I left. I forgot birthdays. I missed years I can't get back. He swallowed hard. But I never forgot you. Not once. Her lips trembled. The world hardened you a bit, she teased weakly. But not your heart. He laughed softly, shaking his head. I gave up my post overseas, he said. I'm not leaving again. I've opened something new here, a small clinic. I named it after you. She blinked slowly, processing the words. After me? He nodded. The Margaret home. A place where anyone, no matter how lost, how poor, how unwanted, can find care. The way you found me. Her eyes filled with tears. Oh, Eli. My boy. He leaned forward, pressing his forehead against her hand. You saved me. Now I want to spend whatever's left of my life saving others. Later that week, word spread through town. The boy the old widow had once raised had come home. The woman everyone thought forgotten was alive, and honored. People came. Old neighbors, children she once comforted, even the mayor who once handed her that medal. They filled the garden of the care home with laughter, flowers, and tears. Margaret, wrapped in a blanket, was wheeled outside into the sunlight. Eli walked beside her, steadying her chair, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. The same sunlight that once fell on her porch decades ago now bathed them both, full circle.